Yes guys, welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix YouTube video. My name is FPL Nacho and in today's video we are looking at the top transfers going into game week 17, including the best budget defenders and of course the best budget midfielders. So as always, if you look forward to today's video, make sure you do smash that subscribe button and of course drop a like on the video. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. So first up, I wanted to touch on those forward options available to us in the game. The main reason being is that at the time recording, we haven't heard any news regarding Wolves' Cunha, but he was involved in an altercation after the match, and there might be a chance we might get a game ban or two for Cunha. Some speculation that it could be a 5-game ban. And if that is the case, he is going to be an immediate sell for a lot of active managers right now in the community. So we need to take a look at if that situation does arise, or maybe if you are just in the market for a forward, who are the best ones to buy? Now, it's worth noting, if Cunha gets banned and you don't have Alexander Isak and you have an easy route to get him, just get it done. Get him in your team because long term, I do think still he is the best value forward in the game. But we're going to go off the assumption that 1, you have Alexander Isak, or 2, you just don't have an easy route to him. And I've highlighted 3 options here which are either the same price as Cunha or a little bit cheaper. And that's going to include Fulham's Raul Jimenez, who has a really fantastic entry point in game week 17 at home against Southampton. We got Chris Wood at 6.6 million, again slightly cheaper than Cunha, with a bit more of a trickier game away against Brentford. And then we've got Mateta, who entry point wise not fantastic at home against Arsenal, but then the fixtures start to get better for a Crystal Palace team that are just improving each and every week. So firstly, taking a look at Raul Jimenez, because when we look at the underlying numbers, he is the one that is dominating each department. XG per 90 is in his favour, expected assists per 90 is in his favour at 0.27, and he is getting more of the big chances per 90 minutes, and naturally the expected FPL points are in Raul Jimenez's favour. And being at 5.5 million, it does look like with Southampton at home, Bournemouth at home in game week 19 and Ipswich at home in game week 20, an absolute no-brainer to bring Raul Jimenez into your teams. And I do think he is probably one of the better value forwards in the game. The only caveat that we need to put in here regarding Raul Jimenez is the fact that he, without fail, will come off between the 70th and 80th minute. That has just been happening each and every game week. And with Muniz coming in and actually scoring against Liverpool in game week 16, it does feel inevitable at some point we'll either see Raul Jimenez come off around the 65th minute or get a benching in one of these games. Now, my personal opinion is that Raul Jimenez will probably play 3 of the next 4, and as long as you can get 2 of these home games coming up, I think that's a good situation to be in at 5.5 million. But I can't sit here right now and say to you that he is going to be guaranteed playing each and every minute, whereas someone like Chris Wood, yes, the numbers are still good, more of a goal threat rather than a creator at Nottingham Forest team. But what we do need to note about Chris Wood is that he is a bonus points magnet. With this Forest team, if Chris Wood scores or gets an assist, he is picking up at least 2 bonus points. That's just how it has been this season for him. And as I mentioned, the fixture's a little bit ropey. Brentford followed by Spurs, but I would argue both of those defences aren't necessarily watertight. Then Everton away, followed by Wolves away. We don't really know what that Wolves team is going to be like in the future under a new management. But if you want guaranteed minutes and basically the talisman in that team, then I think Chris Wood is a fantastic pick for your sides. And again, you need to decide whether you can take the risk with Raul Jimenez's minutes and save yourself that 1 million. And finally, probably a bit more of a differential pick is going to be Mateta. Now again, not really been on anybody's radar this season because his minutes have been a little bit sporadic, and Crystal Palace have been quite a tricky team to kind of have any confidence about, but it looks like Glasner is finally turning the tide. I don't feel like this week is a great time to bring him in, and we did see an early substitution of both him and Eze in game week 16. So my opinion on Mateta right now, because he is the most expensive, I think it's a wait and see. Wait for the next 2 game weeks to happen and then reassess with the Southampton game at home. And maybe even if you want to, go down to maybe a cheaper midfielder option available, which we'll touch on in a minute in this video. So Right now, I think Raul Jimenez is the no-brainer if you're happy to take the risk with the minutes. Otherwise, I just think Chris Wood is just doing it throughout this season so far and basically all of 2024. And even though it is a bit of a boring pick, Chris Wood you can't really go too far wrong with. So let me know your best pick in the comment section. Let's move into these budget defenders, which are getting a lot of hype right now. So as I mentioned, budget defenders are finally back on the menu. Defenders this season have been pretty poor value, so it's really nice the fact that we actually have some defenders who are cheap, who are offering some sort of value to us this season. And those three that we're going to look at right now is going to be Newcastle's Hall, coming off the back of that 15-point haul in game week 16. Then we've got Munoz, who we have to mention picked up his 5th yellow card in game week 16, so he will be suspended for game week 17, but we'll touch on why I still think he's an okay transfer for your teams. And then we got the man of the moment, Robinson. Even though he conceded 2 goals, really impressed in that game against Liverpool, and currently one of the most bought players going into game week 17. And I think it's only right that we start off with Robinson. So with the fixtures coming up, as I mentioned with Raul Jimenez, 3 of the next 4 at home and against some really poor teams in terms of Southampton and Ipswich. So Robinson looks like a fantastic option for both clean sheet potential and attack and returns. Now, the underlying numbers aren't amazing. No goal threat whatsoever, but his creativity is decent at 0.16 per 90. And you can see his shots per 90, 0.56. You're not really getting him at the same level as that of someone like a Munoz in this Crystal Palace team. But what we do associate Robinson with is those overlapping runs on that left-hand side and then either cutting the ball back or standing up those crosses to the back post for someone like a Muniz or a Raul Jimenez. And I think that is going to continue in this Fulham team regardless of the fixtures. So firstly, if you're in a position right now where you're looking to sell Ait-Nouri because of course he got the red card, and when he comes back from the red card, he's still 1 yellow card away from a further suspension. So I think if you can do Ait-Nouri to Robinson and you still don't have any Fulham defensive coverage, that is a bit of a no-brainer right now just because of the attacking threat and the fixtures coming up. If you're in a position right now where you are looking for a player that you need to own, but maybe you've got Anderson already in the defence, I think Lewis Hall is still a good purchase. Now, Botman is featured in the under-21s, so it'll be interesting to see what happens at left-back once Hall and Byrne are competing for that spot. But as of right now, I think Lewis Hall's playing far too well to be replaced in that Newcastle team. And in terms of the underlying numbers, basically the same sort of player as Robinson. We're seeing Gordon kind of tucking a bit more rather than being an out-and-out winger, and it's allowing Lewis Hall to overlap in those wide areas and provide those assists like we saw in game week 16, and that is backed up by the numbers here. Basically no goal threat, but being a creative force in this team. And with the fixtures coming up, I think Ipswich away is not a guaranteed clean sheet at all, and Villa at home have the firepower, followed by Man United and Spurs. So to be honest with you, I think the time to have Hall was in game week 16 with that Leicester game. While I still think he is a good purchase, that slight doubt of Dan Burn maybe playing in those games where they require a bit more of a physical presence in defence could be a slight problem, and I don't think the fixtures scream clean sheets. So for that reason, I think we may have missed the period to own Lewis Hall. And finally, it comes down to Munoz. Now, an interesting one because, spoiler alert, I have brought him into my team. And I'm in one of those rare situations where I already have Anderson and I didn't want to double up on the Fulham defence. And I was looking at who in the future will be the defender that we want to own. And I think that man is going to be Munoz. Now, with the formation that Glasner's playing with the wing-backs and the 3 at back with Gahey and those lot, I think this gives the licence for these wing-backs to really bomb on and influence in the penalty box. And we're in particular seeing that from Munoz a bit more than that of Tyrick Mitchell. 0.17 XG per 90 is fantastic, and 1.13 shots per 90. He was only an offside chance away from scoring again in game week 16. And looking at him right now, I actually get a bit more excited from Munoz than both Robinson and Lewis Hall. The problem is you need to be in a position where you're happily benching him, knowing that he will come straight back into the team in game week 18 for Bournemouth away, followed by Southampton at home, and even Chelsea at home. Palace is showing defensively they're a bit more resolute, and we could even see a performance there. So the number 1 pick is Robinson. I'll then put Muniz if you're in a specific situation where you can bench him this week, For me, Lewis Hall, I think we may have missed the boat right now, but equally could go there if you need him for this specific game week in isolation. So finally, in the comparison section, I want to take a look at the budget midfielders because we really are seeing a new crop of players emerge in this game week. And that is going to be Enzo Fernandez, who previously was one of the most bought players in game week 16, delivering an assist in game week. And I feel like he is one of those players that is going to tick over really nicely with plenty of avenues to points from set pieces and open play creativity. Then we got Amad Diallo, a bit of a FPL sweetheart at the start of the season, but now we are seeing under Amrim that he really is the golden boy in this team, playing either at wing back or as part of that front three which we saw against Man City. And it really does feel like if we can get Amad Diallo playing consistently in that front three at 5.2 million, that is an unbelievable value pick in this United attack, regardless of what you think about them as a team right now. And then finally, we've got Ismail Assar, who, when we look at these numbers right now, we start to ask ourselves, why has he not been on the radar for us sooner rather than later? Now, I tip my hat off to anybody right now that does own Ismail Assar because you are ahead of the game. But at 5.7 million, definitely a player that's flying under the radar right now. And I want to kick things off with him because, as I mentioned, it doesn't feel like the right time to be buying Crystal Palace assets right now with Arsenal at home in game week 17. Even though Palace are getting better, I still think Arsenal are one of the toughest teams to break down in the league, and it doesn't feel like the right time to buy Ismail Assar. So similar to Mateta, I think this is a wait and see right now, and I do feel like he is one of those players that is very unpredictable where his returns are going to come. But you can't really argue the numbers. XG per 90 0.4, expected assist 0.33, and his shot volume is absolutely fine at 2.27. So Ismail Assar, have him on your watch list for game week 18 or 19 onwards. For now, I think we sit tight and just let it be. In terms of Enzo versus Amad, because I know a lot of people are looking to actually downgrade some of their midfielders, it's a very difficult one because I think Enzo's minutes are more guaranteed than that of Amad's, and I would argue that the fixtures are better for Chelsea than that of Man United. With Amad, I think you're getting much more of a creative force in that team. It's worth noting, I think Enzo's numbers have been much better over the last 6 game weeks. We're basically seeing his XG doubled and his expected assists slightly increase as well, as he's been in much more of a box crashing position. Whereas Amad Diallo very much depends on whether he's a wing back or as part of that front three. But if I was buying right now, I'd be quite tempted to jump on Amad Diallo. With Bournemouth at home followed by Wolves and even Newcastle at home, I feel like it's an okay next 3 fixtures for him at 5.2 million. And you know with Man United assets, once they get hot, their prices rise very, very quickly. And I do think this is a player whose price will absolutely skyrocket if we see another great performance in game week 17. So for me, if I had to rank him right now, I probably would put Amad Diallo number 1. Enzo is probably the safe long-term pick for your teams. And Ismail Assar quite clearly third, but one of those that we can have on our radars from game week 19 onwards. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Which one of these on your radar for game week 17? So finally, we need to take a look at these game week 17 predicted points and hopefully give us a bit of an idea on who to captain, because game week 16 was a bit of a disaster. A lot of people went Mo Salah. That felt like a flop until Palmer and Saka both played and ended up being Mo Salah the better option. Hopefully this game week we can be a bit more successful on our choices. Now, based on the predicted points, Cole Palmer's still leading the way with 6.2 predicted points. However, I obviously got to provide my own opinion on this situation. And even though Chelsea have been fantastic so far this season, and I do think they can get a positive result away against Everton, I just feel like that is going to be a tricky game. With Everton having their players back and, of course, getting that brilliant result against Arsenal, I don't think that's going to be an easy day at the office for Chelsea. But the 6.2 predicted points is really solid. However, Mo Salah only slightly behind at 6.1 projected points. And looking at that Spurs game, even though on paper it is a trickier fixture against Spurs, we need to remember that they could be lining up a defence that includes the likes of Pedro Porro, Jed Spence, maybe Archie Gray and Dragishin. So when I think about that, of course, Bentancur not available as well. I think that's a bit of a no-brainer to put the captaincy on Mo Salah. He's Mr. Consistent, and I feel like Liverpool having 11 men, hopefully, for 90 minutes is just going to improve him as an FPL option to that of what we saw in game week 16. So, my personal opinion, even though the projected points are very, very close, I feel much more confident putting the captaincy on Mo Salah just because of the defensive woes we are seeing at Spurs. On another day, Southampton scoring a few goals against them as well. Outside of those two, Isak 5.9 projected points. If you want to go for a differential, you can't really knock that choice right now. Haaland at 5.3, but again, I don't think anybody can trust both Man City or Haaland as we speak. And then we have the differentials in Mbeumo, Cunha, Saka, Iwobi, Bowen and Son. So for me, I think it's quite clear. It's another game week where it's Palmer versus Mo Salah. And just because of those Spurs injuries, I do think Mo Salah is the standout option. But I'd love to know who your top pick is in the comment section. Please let me know. So that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope I've covered off some of the main talking points. But if you have any questions, do drop them in the comment section. We'll try to get to them. And if you did enjoy the video, please do drop a like. And of course, smash the subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.